How you doing, folks? We are back at the 71 Beetle, and now it's time to start working towards actually getting it roadworthy. And I'm going to start with the wiring in the engine bay. And oh my god, what a disaster. This is after stripping off a load of insulation tape and everything. Now, the original connectors are here, okay? So there's one of them, and there's other ones over here, okay? So we actually do have some of the original wiring, and yet all of this trailer wiring has been put in. I don't understand it, like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it all out, and I'm going to start again, because this is a bloody joke. The engine wiring is this, right? Now, the only thing I think is that this car would originally have had an alternator, and I'm going back, making a retrograde step and fitting a dynamo. Now, if you're going to do anything like this, by the way, folks, please make sure you have your battery disconnected, because there will be some things that are actually permanently live. But anyway, I'm going to just disconnect all of this crap, get all of this trailer wiring out of here, and we're going to reinstate the original wiring harness, which actually doesn't look all that bad. Now, you can see I already gashed a finger off myself, cutting this stuff off. But Jesus wept. Oh, well, at least I soldered some of them. So there's the wiring coming in from this light cluster here. So we basically brake tail and brake tail indicator and ground, and we'll have the same on the other side. There's no reverse lights on this car, so makes it fairly simple in that regard. Get rid of all this crapology here. That's running into that's running in underneath the back seat, so God only knows what we're going to find in there. But like, why? I mean, like, the wiring is there. Oh, Jesus wept. Right, okay. I'm just going to shorten that for a sec. Either way, I'm not going to be using that rubbish. So I'm going to cut out all this stuff here as well. Like, the funny thing is that the lights actually did work, but you'll be chasing electrical gremlins till you're blue in the face if you don't kind of at least be somewhat methodical about this kind of stuff and go back to the way it's supposed to be. Now that's the wiring there for the number plate light. So I'm just going to cut all that crap off. And I can tell you now, they go on to this here. There's a kind of a three-way splitter type of effort. And let's see, is there a splice or some sort of bodge in here? What's going on with that now? Yeah, that's alright. You can cut that out as well. Alright, so there's a big length of wire gone anyway for a start. So now, what we're back to is actually the factory wiring, pretty much. So now what I want to do is I want to have a look at a wiring diagram. And we're going to start crimping a few new spade terminals onto things. And peeling back any places where there are splices, but splices that need to be remade. I have solder sleeves that I can use for this. Yeah, this is a little bodge there, right? So there's one. Let's see what's going on here as well. I asked in a poll there recently what people's thoughts were on whether or not you enjoyed electrical wiring in cars and stuff like that. I actually do. I'm sick in the head that way. I have. I just find it's nice because it's relatively clean work, and it can be a little bit of a conundrum to kind of put right, but in a good way. I know some people, it does some people's heads in, but yeah, I'm different than most people. At the time I got struck by lightning and balloons just kept sticking to me. I have a printed diagram here for 1303 1974, but it's in colour and it's going to be broadly similar to this car, so it'll get us pointed in the right general direction. So what we need to do is we need to find all these connections. So you'll see here, for example, you've a tail light right and license plate are both fed off that little Y-shaped connector there, which has a grey with red stripe, and that comes off a grey wire here. So what we're going to do is we're going to trace back the wiring and we're going to find out what is going on with it, because yeah, I've got a couple of spade terminals crimped on here, and I've got that plugged in there. But that should be our tail light on the left, but it's not working. I tried it. So we'll pull that out. And to be honest with you, I didn't think it would, because I'd say whatever's going on with that trailer wiring, there's also similar bodgery going on at the other end that we also need to put right. A trail of bodgery always takes ages to put right, but it's very satisfying when you do. But don't make the assumption that the wiring is right in the light units either. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open this, because I used an auto test probe, which I'll show you now in a second, just to test the wiring going into light units. And yeah, when the brake light should have come on, the tail light came on, and vice versa. So we're going to actually have a look and see now what's going on in here. And we'll evict a few spiders in the process, no doubt. Right, now. So those two screws need to come out as well, I think. Is that just for the reflector? Well, either way, if we just take off the reflector, we should be able to see what's going on. Yeah, okay, that gives us the access we need here. All right. So, when you see masking tape in here and you see shitty Halford's spade terminals, you know things are not looking up. So let's clean a few connections here as well. Actually, I'm going to just take all this rubbish off because it's getting us nowhere. I can do it over on the bench if I was that way inclined as well. But I'm not going to. Alright, so let's get that crappy wire off there. And so we can clean that up as well, find out what colour that's actually supposed to be. And I'd say that's just reversed, and then yeah, I'll have a play around with this anyway. I need to clean everything up here because all of the wires just basically look the same colour because of overspray and all that, and it's really not getting us very far. So I'll do that off camera, get that all sorted out, and I'll bring it back. Okay, so all that was going on there was those two were swapped around. That one's all right as well, and yeah, so what we can do is we can actually reinstall this. The auto test probe, just to show you, is a really handy little gizmo. This is it here, and what you can basically do is you can inject power or supply a ground to something. So let's say, for example, I want to supply power to the indicator bulb here. So I can actually, the negative is on the ground here, and the positive, you can just press that like that. Now, you can invert them. So let's say, for example, I put that there and supplied, well, a ground, okay, it actually doesn't work that way. Anyway, right, that's basically what you can do, but you can also supply a ground to that, and that will actually give you continuity through ground. So if you wanted to test a ground on something. But anyway, right, so what we have now is we've got our 3 wires here. I need to put a spade terminal on that, which I'm going to do now. And then we've got our ground, which is our brown, and that is correct. So black is indicator, and the black is indicator, red is tail, and grey is, I think, brake. But anyway, I'll check the wiring diagram as I go. We'll get them all hooked up. Now, if you have access to a colour printer, an A3 colour printer, this is the way you need to go. And there are plenty of, the samba.com have a load of wiring diagrams, and I think that's where I actually got this one. So there we go, there's our spades all put on, and we're going to leave that out because we're going to need to, the ground out, because we're going to need to put a ring terminal on that. So let's feed this back in through the car. I'll get a grommet for that as well, actually. Actually do that now. Oh, Jesus. Right, here, I'll go and get a pack of grommets. The grommet is just going to go in the hole here to stop the wires chafing, for those who don't know. And just a little rubber doofer that goes there. And now we can put our lights in. If this wasn't a poverty spec car, there would have been a separate space down here for the reverse light, but being that it's poverty spec, it doesn't have a reverse light. Sure, what do you want to need? Why do you need to know where you're going when you're going backwards? Right. Okay, we'll put another grommet in that hole as well. Alright, so I have all of those wires connected up, although the red one unfortunately is a bit short because it was cut short. But hoping that it'll stay on in there, otherwise we'll have to maybe extend it or something like that. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to check it and see if we actually get any sort of lighting at all on the back of the car. So we have to just connect with the battery. Oh, we have no tail lights anyway for a start. Okay, we have an indicator, and I don't know if it's a brake light. On the other side, I'm basically doing the same job. I'm going to just put grommets here. I've got our spade terminals all put on the wiring for the rear light unit. And yeah, basically just going to check it all over. Make sure that the wiring, the wiring is correct. And then we can set about actually finding out what is getting a supply and what's not. And if not, why not? Because we already know there are a couple of areas where we're not getting power, such as the brake and tail lights. Whether or not that's just because of the fact I haven't got the ground connected up yet, I don't know, but I'm not convinced, because they'll get grounds through the screws and stuff like that anyway. So yeah, let's see. Can't be the factory over that. It's not. I might just have to cut down the grommet. I'll get it in anyway. I can put the grommet in around it afterwards. What you can do sometimes, you can cut a slot in the grommet. If you don't want to take the wiring harness out to do it, cut a slot in the grommet, put it around it, and then just feed it in. Better than nothing. It's obviously better to do it without cutting it, but you know, it's still, as I said, better than nothing. Tail light right should be a grey wire. So we're going to look for a grey wire, and that's going to go into one side of this lad here. So let's see if our tail lights and brake lights are all wired up correctly. I'm just going to connect up my auto test probe to the battery I'm using it. Okay, and actually just throw that onto the carburetor to give us our ground, and then positive. Actually, let's check it out. So it's not going to work with us taking it out now, is it? Anyway, it fell off. Right. Okay, so I have the auto test probe connected up now, so we're going to just try and make sure that the tail light, okay, that's tail light, that's grey, and that's what it should be. So red should be brake light then. We're not getting anything on that, so maybe the bulb might be gone. We'll check it now in a minute. Okay. Okay, the brake light bulb is working, so I'd say it's just a dirty connection. So I'm going to actually just give them a little clean up, and they should be good to go then. So we'll do that now. It's as well I rechecked actually, because the wires are actually mixed up on this. The black wire should be on the indicator light, and the red wire should be on the tail light. So we're going to swap them around. Alright, so let's get these. Let's get the wiring put back in here now. And I cleaned up all the bulb holders and all that as well with just a brass wire wheel, so the contacts should be absolutely fine now. That can go in there. We know the wiring is correct this time around. It's going to sit there. We get 2 screws in now while we're at it. And you can feed the wires into the engine bay and get them all hooked up. And then at least we know that the wiring inside the engine bay for the rear lights is right, and we can kind of chase issues then further down the line, because you can be sure as hell there's something going on underneath that back seat, because that's where all that trailer wiring is going. I'm not going to bother putting the lens back on yet, because even though I did on the other side, because I still want to make sure that everything is right here. Although I'm fairly sure it is, we're going to still have to put ring terminals on those grounding leads and find a suitable place to get a ground for them. I strongly recommend if you're going to be doing anything with car wiring to any great degree that you buy yourself one of these wire crimpers and these little spade terminals that actually crimp onto the wire. I got this on Wish and it didn't cost the earth at all, and it's a great little set, and I've done an awful lot of wiring with it and it's proven to be very, very effective, and they give a good quality finish, like, you know what I mean. So it's yeah, it's well worth the investing that few quid on it. And when I mean a few quid, it's really not expensive. I made up this grounding lug, which is going to bolt onto the inside of the wing, one of the wing retaining bolts. So we're going to get a good body ground on that. I've cleaned it all up and everything as well, and I have a little piece of wire here. And here's another thing that no electrical toolkit should be without is solder sleeves. That goes on over there. You can hear my heat gun in the background, so we're going to attach this over that side, and that will bond the left light cluster, and then we're going to do the same on the right, and we're going to put two lugs on that one for our number plate light and our right hand light cluster. So I'm going to get that done. And there we have the finished article. So I've actually extended that red wire there as well, so that's all sorted, and we've got our grounding point there, and it also gives a convenient place to just cable tie the wires onto as well. I also reattached the diagnostic port on this, such as it is. 1971 diagnostic port, you can imagine how much use it is. But anyway, right, so that's that all done, and basically what we have to do is the same thing over this side, and then we can call the engine bay wiring for the lights anyway more or less complete. And then we can worry about wiring up the engine itself, and then we can do what's under the back seat and kind of work our way forwards in the car, because I want to get the engine bay kind of completed in that regard anyway, and then I can start doing things like connecting up the fuel supply and the accelerator cable, the heat exchangers, all of that, and basically move forward with that kind of thing. I've been driving classic cars for 21 years now, and I suppose in many cases I was daily driving them and that as well. And time again, one of the things I tend to realise is that they're only unreliable when obviously there's a lack of maintenance, but one of the things that is a constant source of unreliability on classic cars is poor wiring. And that's one of the things. You're talking about a wiring harness that's 40 or 50 years old, and there's been many a bodge done on it over the years, or maybe just places where they're frayed or there's no grommets or anything like that. But if you actually just work your way through it and make sure you don't have any corroded contacts, a bit of dielectric grease goes a long way there, and contact cleaner spray, repair any wires that need to be repaired, most of the time you'll actually find that the cars become much, much more reliable, and Beetles particularly. And the electrical systems are so simple in them as well for that very same reason. But anyway, I've got a lot of the wiring taken care of in here now. It's wrapped up. I've repaired a couple of little places where the wiring was damaged, like that. The oil pressure light wire there is it was frayed, so I've just put a little bit of heat shrink over that. I've extended it down, and that's there. They're just tied together there, just with a bit of testa tape, just to keep everything neat. I still have to find out what the hell that wire is doing. It's white with a green trace, so I need to figure that one out. And then we still have to wire up the alternator as well. The inner wings are looking an awful lot tidier there now, just with the rear light cluster wiring. So I'm pretty happy with how that came out. Now I probably will maybe get something just to pin them back a little bit. Maybe I won't. I might just leave them the way they are, to be honest with you. They're pretty decent. But the next thing is under the back seat, and unfortunately things are just going to get uncomfortable under here now. But no time like the present to get stuck in. Fortunately enough, the wiring harness here seems to be undisturbed up to this point. So any bodgery, I think, has really just gone on between there and where the wiring goes into the engine bay. So if we can figure out what's going on there and maybe try and reinstate the original wiring and just repair it as necessary, I think things will be an awful lot better for us. But I'm going to make a bit of space here. I'm going to get the back seat out and move the seats forward, and just one of the other things as well we need to look at is grounds and battery connections and all of that as well. Because if you remember in my previous video, the car was quite slow turning over. And I remembered since then, actually, it does have a relatively new starting motor in it. So it's not the starter, it's something else. Alright, we've got everything unwrapped here now so that I can kind of see what's going on a bit better. There are definitely a few bodge wires in place here, and we need to get rid of as many of them as possible. So here's our trailer wiring coming through here, which is going into the engine bay. Now, I'm not going to just go and reef that out straight away. The reason being is that if I do have to pull a new wire or two, which I'm hoping I won't, I can use that wire to pull it through, basically tape it onto the other end. What I will be doing is disconnecting it at both ends though, and we're going to have a look and see what wiring is actually still in place. And look at the amount of these bloody... Oh, I hate these things. I'll be using solder sleeves to repair them anyway, taking them all out and putting solder sleeves in instead. So that's one thing to do. Then we're going to have a look through and see what else is going on. Let's get that trailer wiring all disconnected first of all, and we can have a look and see what's needed. There's a ground there even onto the... That's the voltage regulator for the dynamo. I'm glad actually to see that, because I wasn't sure if this car had originally had a dynamo or an alternator. And yeah, this engine that I put into it has a dynamo. I think that's all looking a little bit more presentable, don't you? So I have replaced all of the bullet connectors except one. That one there, I'm actually going to leave that there because I may end up putting a fuse on that, because that's the main power feeder. And the rest of them have all been done with solder sleeves. And I basically went through and identified all of the wires. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test them now, and if everything is alright, I'm going to remove the identification tape, and I am going to wrap that all up in Tessa tape, and then it will be a nice completed harness, well protected, and yeah, should do the job. So basically there was a lot of stuff here, it was just connected wrong. I still haven't figured out what the hell, like, I don't know what these are for, and I don't know why this trailer wiring was put in. So I can pull that out now actually. There we go. Another lump of wiring taken out of the car. So let's do a bit of testing, shall we? Alright, so first thing I have to do is connect with the battery and make sure nothing bursts into flames. Right, we've got one tail light, so need to figure out what the story is there. There may be a blown fuse, so that'll be a simple fix, obviously. Next thing is, have we got a brake light? We have brake lights, brilliant. And I also noticed we have our oil pressure light and our generator light, which is great. So next thing is our indicators. That's working. Alright. Okay, so last thing we need to do now is turn that off for a second. And I am going to have a look at the fuses and see if our, well, we'll be able to know, we'll know straight away if we actually just have a look at our side lights. Because if the side light on the right hand side isn't working, then we side light's working. Okay, so we need to find out why the right hand tail light is not working as well as the number plate light, because that's all I tested them and they're working fine in the back of the car, so they're obviously not getting their supply. Well, in under the bonnet there is more of the same shite. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to go through all of this as well. I mean, there's taped up grounds and, yeah, basically, I've traced back this wire here that was going through the front harness that wasn't supplying power. There was power at the fuse panel, but there wasn't down at another bundle of misery. which was down under the front, in the front passenger footwell, and that's more of these bloody things. So I'm going to put all that right as well anyway, and see what I can do just by way of tidying up that nest of wires there as well. It'll never be perfect, in fairness. I've seen people doing amazing jobs on these on Beetle wiring, but I don't think I'm going to be going that far on it. Just so long as it's functional is the main thing here, and I'll maybe throw a few cable ties at it, and then I have to try and get rid of all the foam and crap that's down there and everything as well. It's not expanding foam, it's like wool, actually, is what it's like. But what it is it's a disaster for rust and corrosion. So, yeah. I'm going inside to have a well-earned beer, and I'm going to pick this up another time. Off camera, I have been busy, and I've got all of those bullet connectors replaced with solder sleeves. So that's all done there, so I'm going to wrap that all up now, and we now have a full complement of taillights. So it's all sorted. Headlights, brake lights, indicators, they're all working as well. And I have the dynamo wired up too. I also took a few minutes to just clean up the battery terminals, and obviously they're loose there. I mean, I know they are, but yeah, they're all good. And what I'll do is when the car is up on the ramp and I'm doing the axle boot at a later stage, I will do the earthing point under there too. I also want to wrap the harness now, so that's going to be the next thing I do, and then I'm going to tackle the remains of what is going on under the bonnet. Okay, there we go. So that's the front wheel. Well, ignore all this carry on for the moment. I'm going to have to re-weld that. It's actually not rusted, and there's no rust behind it, but it's just, I get the feeling they may have cut that off in order to try and access the heat riser pipe from down here. What a bloody stupid thing to do. Anyway, right, we'll fix that at some point as well. For the time being anyway, that's the wiring repair done there, and it is not looking half bad under the seat either. So yeah, that's all nicely wrapped up and working. So happy days. Last but by no means least, let's see if I can do something with this. I'm just going to have to basically comb through them and try and figure out what the hell's doing what and what we can do about it. But it actually, believe it or not, and I know it's hard to believe, it's not as bad as it looks. As I said, everything works, all the connectors are there, so it's really just a case of wrapping some of it and kind of tidying it. I'm not going to go too mad on this end of things, to be honest with you. As I said, I didn't go too mad under here. I just basically checked everything over, made sure there were no shorts or kind of frayed wires or anything like that. And everything's alright. It's passable, to be honest with you. Look, it's a 50-year-old Beetle, so to be honest with you, they were like this from the factory. But what I did do is I cleaned up underneath here, and I do think it actually looks an awful lot better now, just having done that. And I got rid of all of the foam that was down there and there. They made some sort of haphazard attempt at trying to kind of plug up the part where the pipe comes up here and put all of these plumbing fittings and everything, and it was a disaster. So I took all of that out, and we'll re-engineer it and get it kind of closer to the way VW intended at a later stage. For the time being, let's just try and actually get it driving. Alright, I just want to crank it over and make sure it's spinning over on the key and all that, and we're getting our oil pressure light and that. Yeah, we have oil pressure and generator there, so let's crank it. Okay, it's taken a while for it to build oil pressure, but don't forget it is running 5W30 oil in there. And it's completely wrong for a Beetle engine. The reason I did that is just basically because it's thinner stuff. It's got all the detergents in it. It'll flush all the crap in the engine out of it. And once I've kind of given it its first sort of short run, I'll just drain all that out when it's roasting hot and get it get the 20W50 into it then, and it should be golden then. But right, next thing I want to do is get it up on the ramp and get the fuel lines connected and get the accelerator cable connected. And once we have that done, then we're going to have a look and see if she will start and run on the key. Exciting times. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the fuel lines connected up, and that's simply because I need a few more parts actually. But I do have the accelerator cable connected up. I need to run a hard line down part of the car. There's There's no, in actual fact, there's a steel braided line running the length of the car from the fuel tank up to the back of it because the ends of the original fuel line are broken off. That might be passable. It's not ideal, but we can maybe live with it for the time being. But where the fuel line passes through the front tin of the engine, I need to get something there that's so that the rubber line is not going to chafe, because that just will not do. So anyway, for the time being, I just have this temporary fuel can connected up, and we're going to see if the engine will run in the car. And I actually want to see if we actually have a clutch or anything like that as well, because that's something else I haven't checked. So let's give that a go and see what happens. Like crap, but it's running. And the alternator for the generator is working as well. Great. And we have a look. Great stuff. Just doesn't want to rev up at all. Weird. So it's ticking over. Alright, I've turned it off. Let's see the advanced mechanism even working. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be bound up or anything like that. Straight away I see a problem actually with the vacuum lines after coming off the carburetor. So we're just trying to refit that. Let's pop that on there. Now let's see what happens. That's all it was. Happy days. strange one. Right, so you know what? I set out to get all the wiring sorted out in this car in this video, so I think at this point in time I'm actually going to call it at that. And in the next video I'm going to actually get it to a point where it's ready to drive. So we know we've got forward and reverse. The engine does run, such as it is. Not very well, mind. We have the wiring all sussed, and what I need to do is get a fuel supply and then get to the bottom of what's actually going on with this engine. Then we can kind of get it out on the road and start piecing together the other few little bits and pieces. So we're going to get to that in the next video. So yeah, I hope you'll join me for that, and I'll keep you updated on my progress. And yeah, please do hit the subscribe button before you go. I really do appreciate it, and I will catch you in a future video. Thanks very much for watching.